Hello, I'm Sarah. This is Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with a book haul video. I've hauled a few books over the past few weeks over the Christmas holidays, and thought I would give you a peek at what I have gotten. So let's jump in and get started, shall we? Some of these I got from U-Stores, some of these I ordered online, and then some I got from Book of the Month. So I'll kind of say where I got what from. The first one, this is something that my good friend Leo from Leo's Little Book Life on Instagram has raved about for ages. He's convinced that I'm going to love this, and he is rarely wrong. This is Harriet Martineau's Deerbrook. This is one of these gorgeous Virago modern classics. Please, not too much glare there. And this is really a good copy, except for this big crease in the cover. But with an older book like this, you can't really be too choosy. I'm just glad it's not marked up. The font is pretty small, and the strange spacing. I mean, look at all this space here at the bottom. Why did they do that? But I'm sure it's going to be worth it. So next up, this is really funny. So over the holidays, my mother came for the break, and we went on a little bit of a trip for Christmas. And in that trip, I finished a book and I had her immediately start it. And the book is Blood and Sugar by Shephard-Robinson. This book is phenomenal. This is a historical mystery book that I absolutely adored. This is set in Victorian times, 1781. And this is really a confrontation with slavery, the remnants of slavery that still existed because of the sugar plantations. And this is set in England, and the abolition movement and all of that comes into play. The atmosphere was amazing. The plot was amazing. The characters were really good. Even though there's a lot of them, they're all well figured out. So you didn't have to spend a bunch of time going back to the front to figure out who people were. It was so good that when we came back from the trip to my apartment, my mother said, wait, you said that there was a second one, because she read immediately after me, was completely absorbed. And so I sent her home with my copy, hence I had to get my own. This is Daughters of Night by Laura Shephard-Robinson, and this is the second of the series. And this is the next year, it's 1782. And we move from the main character, which was this woman's husband, to her story. And she was a character who was kind of in the background for the first book. She comes into the foreground in this one. Historical fiction mystery. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. My mother said she absolutely adored it. So quite excited to jump in here. So I was so overwhelmed with Claire Keegan's work last year. I read Small Things Like These, which blew me away. Beautiful story set at Christmas time. Was shortlisted, I think, for the Booker or the Women's Prize, one of the two. And then I just read Foster, which I was granted access to by NetGalley and the publisher. So I immediately was like, I need to do more investigation with Claire Keegan because her work is astounding. This is Antarctica, and I think this is short stories. I'm trepidatiously optimistic. While I don't like short stories overall, if they're too weird or too jarring, or too provocative. But she has a way of writing that's so luminous, that's so emotional immediately without being sentimental, that I think it might work for me. So I'm going to give these a try. Let me know if you've read this and what your thoughts were, please. Then this book came up on the Daunt bookseller's Instagram account. Daunt is one of my most favorite bookstores in the world. It's in Marylebone High Street in London. And my favorite bookseller in the whole world, Jack, actually promoted this one. I thought, oh, okay, I need to take a look at it. And this is Rombo by Esther Kinsky, and it's translated by Carolyn Schmidt. And this is set in northeastern Italy in 1976, and it's about an earthquake and what happens after the earthquake. And being someone who lives in earthquake country here in the San Francisco Bay Area, little scared. Talk about trepidation, right? But curious. There's been big earthquakes here before, and they say that another one will be imminent. So maybe this is preparatory. I don't know. But all I needed to know was that Jack said it was revelatory and fantastic. So done. And I really like Fitzcarraldo edition books. So good to have that. Then I read my first book by this author this last year, and it was one of my favorites. I still have to do my favorites of the year, so expect that coming up soon. But I read The Shooting Party by Isabelle Colgate and was astounded at the craftsmanship of it. Craftswomanship? Craftspersonship? And so I saw this edition, and this is a slim little book. This is The Blackmailer by Isabelle Colgate, and I thought that cover was fantastic. Now, I do have Orlando King and Statues in a Garden that are also put out by Bloomsbury in kind of a similar visual style. I do love these covers. So I'm looking forward. This is slim. I can knock it out pretty quickly, and excited to get back into her work. So some of those I bought from Blackwell's in the UK. Then this is something that when I mentioned that I was starting to maybe be okay with short stories, Susan, who is somebody who I trust her judgment very much. She's a frequent commenter here and has joined some of my book group reads. Mentioned this, and all I needed to do was hear her give a recommendation, and I immediately went on Abe's book to see if I can find something. I found an outstandingly unbroken cover, looks completely brand new. This is Paris Stories by Mavis Gallant, and it actually has a foreword by Michael Anjati, who I've loved some of his work as well. So that's a great perspective. So Paris, yes. Michael Anjati, yes. Susan's recommendation, yes. Short stories, maybe. But excited to maybe tap into this, especially as I'm reading so much Parisian fiction this year. With my Émile Zola Rougon Macquart series, and also reading Simone de Beauvoir's fictional work this year. So I think this will slot in very, very nicely. Then this year, I'm going to hopefully return to Oxford. For the past years, pre-pandemic, I would go to Oxford, and they do a program where you study and live at Christ Church for a week. And you could take one class, and they spread it out for a week. And it's absolutely delightful. I love it so much. And so I chose one class, and this is one of the books from the class. I've switched to a different class because I wasn't, when I really looked at the syllabus, I didn't think it was as interesting as I originally thought. But I still have this book, and I'll read it because I hadn't heard about this before. This is Love in Amsterdam, the inspiration behind the major TV series, the Van der Valk novel by Nicholas Freeling. And really great cover there. So book set in Amsterdam, of course. Mystery set in Amsterdam, sign me up. So that was a kind of a no-brainer. Then I read this author for the first time in Nonfiction November and fell in love with the complexity of her story, how she told it, the beauty of her writing, the hard truths and the rawness with which she wrote. So she has a new book out, and this is a signed edition. This is The Instant by Amy Liptrot. She wrote the Outrun, which, as I mentioned, loved it. Really love that. The little birds right there. Hopefully you can see that up the inner part of the book there, the book edge. I'm really looking forward to this. This is kind of a continuation of her story. Little signature signed there. Continuation of her story of what's happened since she tried to get to become sober and really focused on her life and kind of repairing and finding herself through nature, ironically, and being pushing herself and pushing her through her fears and listening to the quiet of nature and orienting herself. And so in this one, she actually steps back out into the world and goes to Berlin. So I'm really curious about her story. What happens to her and how does she think about those changes and those events? So looking forward to that. And what I'm going to try to do this year that I made mention in my kind of plans for 2023 is I want to read more nonfiction throughout the year, not just hold it all to Nonfiction November. Okay, this one I'm so looking forward to. This is Orhan Pamuk's Nights of Plague. Look at that cover. I literally had to get it from the UK because the American cover was not as good. Look at the back. Oh, so good. So the back says, "Plague is not the only killer." So it's a historical mystery written by Orhan Pamuk, who is the very famous author who usually writes really beautiful, lyrical, literary fiction. This is translated from the Turkish by Ekin Oklap. So I'm really looking forward to this. I have a very good friend who's reading it right now, says that he's loving it. So I'm anxious. This one is staring at me. I keep thinking I'm going to jump to it, but I've just got a lot of books going right now. But maybe this will be done sooner rather than later. Then the next ones are my picks from the Book of the Month Club from this last month's selection. Since reading Tomb of Sand, this is the winner of the Booker International Prize. This is by Gitanjali Shree, and Daisy Rockwell was a translator. Lyrical, amorphous, transcendent book about one woman who lived through the partition, and she's nearing the end of her life and wants to reconnect, wants to put herself back together. That's a very oversimplification of this book. This book is so good. So many things here, but that really inspired me to try to understand more about this time in British history, the formation of Pakistan and India as we know it today. And so to that end, I saw this one and it looked pretty interesting. This is Independence, Three Sisters, Their Deep Bond and the Struggle for India's Freedom. This is a novel by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. Really nice cover there. And this is specifically about the partition, so curious. I know this author has done some books before that have gained a lot of praise, so I'm curious to see what she does with this story in this with this point of view. Then another Indian story. This is Age of Vice by Deepti Kapoor. This looked really good, kind of a mystery book. Set in modern day New Delhi. So that, it seems to be getting a lot of buzz. So jumped on that. I think Roxanne Gay blurbed that she really enjoyed it. This is something that Leo and I are going to be reading this coming year. And this is some of the works of Henry James. So this is Portrait of a Lady. I got this at Abe's book. And again, hasn't even been cracked open. basically brand new, really much better font, by the way, much better size than the previous book. But looking forward to reading this one. We'll be reading that later on this year. Then this is not part of our reading, of Leo and my reading of Simone de Beauvoir's work, but it's kind of adjacent, tangential. This is How to Be You, Simone de Beauvoir and the Art of Authentic Living by Skye Clearly. I know nothing about this book other than the cover intrigued me and Simone de Beauvoir. So interesting in looking at the contextualization of Simone de Beauvoir's work and her iconic presence and personality in the idea of authenticity. So curious about this. Then another Susan recommendation. This one is Edmund Duval's Letters to Camondo. This is something that she said that she thought I might like because it's nonfiction and it has Proustian elements, it has art in it, it has Paris. And so all of those elements I really, really love. So I saw this at a used bookstore. When I sold back some books, I was able to get this as part of the trade-in process. So always love when that happens. And this is pristine. Nice heft, really beautifully done. So that is it. These are the most recent ones I've gotten. I did try to tell myself that I wasn't going to buy any more, and yet there's like 3 books that have just come out in the UK that I really am so tempted by. I think I might wait. We'll see. I make no promises. But I would love to know, have you read any of these and what your thoughts are, or anything that's similar to it that you think I might like. With that, I hope your reading is going well, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.